Welcome back to That Rugby podcast, brought to you by the Sports Booth. My name is Luke. That is Hughesy, my co-host. How are you, Hughesy?
G'day. Very, very well, thanks. It's a good week for Australian rugby, I think, safe to say. Better week for me as a Dragons fan because we finally sacked Anthony Griffin and finally named a side that makes sense. Zach Lomax put back onto his regular centre position, not forced to swap sides. Moses Mbai out of the team. Jacob Little starting. Look, I know I'm diverging onto rugby league straight away, but it's a bloody good week. The Waratahs had a great win, a redemption win over the Rebels, in which key players showed up big time. We'll get into more detail about that. But then I guess probably the upset of the season that has been has had some notable upsets. And I think this one though does take the cake.
Yeah, look, you're speaking highly of it from an Australian rugby perspective, and I'll let you talk about the Dragons on this podcast purely because we do have a part where we will discuss your Dragons, which is interesting enough. Again, as us being a rugby union podcast, but yes, the Reds beat the Chiefs in Hamilton. We've said multiple times that the Reds are allergic to beating New Zealand Super Rugby teams, and they got rid of that allergy. I don't know what they did to get rid of it, but they got rid of that allergy. Shocked the Chiefs, undefeated run ended at home by the Reds team. We always knew this Reds team had spirit. That was never in doubt with Brad Fawn as your coach. But I think looking at it now, 3 rounds out, it's hard to see them, even with their tough schedule ahead, the Reds, it's hard to see them missing out. I think it would take some serious results for them to just about miss out after that result. Because we keep sitting here saying they're going to fall out of the top 8, they're not going to make it, but the further and further we get down and the closer and closer we get to finals time and they're still in there.
Yeah, look, this was the big one for them because I had said, and this is my prediction to be proved wrong, and I'm happy to be proved wrong in this prediction, that the Reds would beat the Force and then they would lose the rest of their game. And that started out well because they beat the Force and they lost to the Waratahs. You would think playing the Chiefs in New Zealand, they would lose. Not only is it a New Zealand team, but it's on New Zealand soil.
Yeah.
However, maybe there's a last little sprinkling of Brad Thorne magic to be had before he fades away into the mists. Where they bearded the dragon in the den, so to speak. And what I really liked was stand-up performances from a couple of potential Wallabies and Tate McDermott and James O'Connor. So that is all positive signs for Australian rugby.
Yeah, and again, like we've talked about this for so long, I think a competitive competition is more important.
Yeah.
Than a team running away with it. And to be fair, the Chiefs had done something that I don't think any team had done, is go for that long unbeaten in a Super Rugby season. And
pretty incredible.
It was impressive. And I don't think they'll be too worried with this loss. Like, it's one of those ones you'd rather have this loss now, where did we go wrong, and not be in the finals.
So I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I want to get your opinion on this, because I have an opinion on this as well. All right. Do you think there is now more or less pressure on the Chiefs?
Less pressure. I think, yeah, definitely. I think if they'd gone into the finals undefeated, that there would have been like, can they go all the way? It's a very much like they haven't been beaten. If they lose now, this. I think that the big thing for me, they stay the favourites because they beat the Crusaders twice. And although they lost to the Reds, now I think it takes quite a lot of pressure off them. And again, it's one of those games where they didn't lose to a team that's pushing the top 5. Like if they'd lost to a Brumbies or if they'd lost to a Blues or even a Hurricanes, you sit there and go, are they really that good? They were shocked by a Reds team who turned up. And I think it's a message from this Reds team to show that they can do it on their day against anyone. So going into the finals, if they can make the finals, which now more looking more likely, I think it's less pressure on them, and even less pressure on the Reds now, like for finals time.
Definitely less pressure on the Reds. For me, though, I started sitting there putting my mind to it. I feel like there's a little bit more pressure because there's a very, very good chance this Chiefs team will meet the Reds in the first round of the finals if the Reds make it in. right? Because the Reds are sitting at 7th. They could very easily end up at 8th,
Yep.
where they've got the Blues coming up this week. Thereafter, they play the Highlanders, which they could win but could equally lose, and then they play Fiji in Fiji, which we know you don't beat Fiji in Fiji unless you've got a blue jersey, and they don't have a blue jersey. They're called the Reds. They're the antithesis of blue.
Exactly.
Right? So there's a very good chance they could end up at 8th. But for me, for the Chiefs, I feel like there's a little bit more pressure because now you've got a little bit of doubt in the back of your mind of we fucked up against this Reds team. I think it's more pressure because it isn't one of those top 4 teams. Right? I think if you lose to a top 4 team, you think, okay, they're other great competitors. We've had great games against them. Sort of no shame in losing one of these ones. These are those games that we've out-efforted them before, but they just got the better rub of the green this time. With a team like the Reds, where they're pushing the bottom part of the 8, you think something there has to be a serious hole or serious flaw somewhere within us that this team that hasn't had a particularly good season was able to exploit. And can other teams figure out what it was off the back of that? And if we face this Reds team again, they had our number last time. Can they do it again? I feel like it brings in that little bit of doubt because of who the Reds are this season, right?
Yep.
It's not as if it's like another hard-fought game against the Crusaders or even the Brumbies or the Canes or the Blues, right? It's just like we got beaten by, a team that is hoping to make the top 8 this year.
Yeah,
so, and I think that doubt could start to play on them.
And I see what you're saying, and especially the loss at home is an interesting one. Like if this was in Queensland, it's again like anyone can go to Fiji and lose. The Crusaders, Hurricanes both done it. So I sit there and go, if it had been at home, it had been away, not such a big deal. I would be
less doubt. Yeah.
I also think the Reds have given teams a blueprint. Like this is how you actually beat. So I see what you're saying, but I think that takes the pressure off the Chiefs because now teams are saying, look, we saw what they've done. I think the Chiefs will take a lot more out of this than any other team will take out of what the Reds just did. That's my honest belief. I think the Chiefs will sit there and go, we lost. There was no doubt we lost. Why did we lose? And how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? So I see what you're saying. I definitely see. It is hard. I think for the next couple of rounds, the pressure ramps up. They lose another game, all of a sudden it's really was it a real 10-win streak? Did they actually do it, or was it fluke that they were going through, beat the Crusaders twice? So I think the pressure rises, but I think come finals time, and you make a good point as well. If they play a team like the Reds, I think if they get past that first week of finals, the pressure's fully off. It's not an undefeated season, but if they play the Reds again, I think I can see what you're saying. My Canes bounced back, so that was good to see. Obviously, going to Fiji, it's tough, we know.
Yeah, big bounce back.
Especially against the Moana Pasifika side who showed up against the Blues a week beforehand. So we were kind of expecting, and they went into halftime. It's hard for Moana Pasifika, and I'll touch base again on them later, to stay in those physical clashes and have 2 back-to-back where you're the Blues and the Hurricanes. It's tough. That's not an easy schedule. They're in the game at halftime, and then 40-odd points in the second half. You just can't give that many points up. You won't beat any team in Super Rugby by giving up that many points in the second half.
I will say, no matter what scoreline it is, it's always entertaining to watch a Moana Pasifika game.
Oh, totally, definitely. Their spirit of throwing the ball around, playing that Pasifika style, is definitely not lost on them. We can definitely say that. The Satyrs hold out the Blues 15-3 in what you can call as a defensive tussle. A big, obviously, moment there was Dalton Popoleti's red card or yellow card upgraded to a red and 3 weeks out. It's the right call. Don't get me wrong, it's the right call. And from that, the game, I guess, mellowed out a bit after that. It was very much a Crusaders performance where you've done something wrong, you've fucked up, we'll take control of that.
Yeah, I had to say the defensive effort from the Blues was incredible up until the card, basically. And I think even after the card, you could say as well. I saw from the highlights just this phase after phase after phase after phase of the Crusaders attacking, and then eventually the Blues turned it over. So I think, it is hard because the Crusaders definitely play the possession game where they hold on to the ball so much they just don't give you any opportunities to attack against them, and you have to capitalize on those. And yeah, Crusaders just looked very, very good. Getting back into form, I think you could kind of say, which is odd to say about a team that is 8-3, but to say that they've been dipped in form, that's just the Crusaders. That's just the standard we've come to expect from them.
And it was really interesting. I read a quote the other day about Richie Moana, and I may make this a topic for next podcast just to get the mind working. But someone said he was the greatest Super Rugby player ever. So not like like he was the best player, but just his record, the way the Crusaders have gone.
Rugby, yeah.
I was like, man, we'll put that to the test. We'll get a list of our top fives from next week because I'd be interested. It makes sense that like the record he's been on, the run the Crusaders have been on, he would have won four championships.
This is greatest Super Rugby player.
Yep. So you're not taking.
See, look, I would have said Jake Gordon, but he's just a rugby player. He's just a rugby player. So
he's a bloody good one at that.
Yeah,
as he scooted away for 60 meters again, and you're like, that's a rugby player there.
He is a rugby player. There's one thing you could say about him, and no one could deny it. It's that he is a rugby player.
That he is. So we'll talk about that next time. The force blow past the Dura in a second half performance. This will be the question that always gets asked for the Dura is, as much as you can win at home, can you win away, and can you consistently do it away against teams who I think are lesser than what the Dura are? But if they can't do that, they're not gonna struggle, I don't think, in the comp, but they're gonna struggle to win the comp without it.
Yeah. It's even going to make it hard for them to be in the top 8 because they're out now. They're behind the Force. The Force leapfrogged them because of this effort. And it's going to be a hard slog for Fiji to get back. They're lucky that their last 2 games. So this week coming up against the Waratahs is going to be a hard one for them. And I think the Waratahs should be favourites for that. Yeah. After that, though, they do play Moana Pasifika as a home game. And then they play the Reds in Fiji, right? So they'd be hoping to win 2 of their last 3. Whereas the Force, who have they got? They've got the Brumbies. That is at home, but still it's the Brumbies. They've got the Rebels, which is a big one. And then they've got the Chiefs, where we said that may or may not be a really tough game, depending on if the Chiefs are resting people or not.
Yep.
So I think it's really up in the air, and you can't discount the Rebels as well, still from leapfrogging the Dura as well. Like that. And the Highlanders are hanging around as well. I mean, we saw that they were able to hang in the game against the Brumbies as well. Like, look, I think you could almost pretty safely pencil in the Waratahs for a spot. I think that's highly likely to happen. They should win 2 of their last 3. It's going to be a challenge against the Crusaders, but against the Dura and then Moana Pasifika, they should take those.
Totally.
The Reds, who have they got? I know I went through this before, but I'm going through it again. They've got the Blues, which will be tough. They've got the Highlanders in Dunedin, which will be tough as well. And then Fiji in Fiji. So I don't think we could safely say the Reds are going to be in there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 teams essentially vying for 2 spots.
Yep.
And that's great. That's what we love to see. We don't know what these finals are going to look like. It's what a competitive competition looks like.
Yes. I'm an anti top 8 finals when you've got 12 teams. It to me should be 6, and it would still be just as interesting going into it. Mm-hmm. Like there's still a lot of opportunity for those top 6 teams. So to me, it makes sense for it to be 6. Like someone actually mentioned at the earlier on in the season, if it was a top 4, looking at the top 4, it would be nutty, but not. I like having 6 because I think it opens up that opportunity because we have a clear top 5. But one of those top 5 teams would miss the semi-finals. And if it was top 4, when he was speaking about it, it'd be the Crusaders who had lost in Fiji, had just lost to the Chiefs to start the season. Like the Crusaders would be worried about not making the top 4, which is crazy to think. But again, when Super 12 originated, when it was back to its heyday, it was the top 4. That was it. Like it doesn't matter if you fucking are battling as one of those teams. It's the top 4. That's the class above the own. So I understand the top 8, and because we get entertainment like this, and we have meaningful games against the lower sides. But top 6 to me makes more sense. However, your Tars got a good win. much needed win over the Carter Gordon led Rebels, who Carter is just on fire at the moment. Like
He was carrying that team. He was doing so much for them. He looks very, very good. He should very be. I mean, I think Quaid is looking very good over in Japan at the moment, which is also a positive. It'd be great for Eddie Jones to have a selection headache where it's not shit. Who can I put in at 10? It's like shit. Which one of these 10s do I pick? Two very different scenarios.
totally.
It's much easier to try and figure out which square piece to put in the square hole than trying to figure out what one of your other shapes can fit into the square hole kind of thing. So yeah, a good problem to have. Even Ben Donaldson probably had his best game. So in our live commentary live stream, which you could check out the recording of on YouTube, I called for Ben Donaldson. I said he needs to still step up a bit more. Like he's sort of how to phrase it? Like I think I said last week that Noah Lolosio was a sort of, and even Carter Gordon is, but I think Carter Gordon blends it well. They're very good at running the ball and attacking, taking on the line themselves. And I think I said I wanted to see Noah be a bit more of a facilitator. I think it's very much the reverse of Ben Donaldson. He's a very good facilitator, but he wasn't attacking the line enough. I saw a lot of that against the Rebels. I mean, obviously set up a great try with Izzy Parisi doing that, and that's what you need at E10. I mean, you look at what Moanga and Barrett do in Mackenzie for New Zealand, and it's they combine those things so wonderfully. You look at overseas 10s as well, like Marcus Smith and things in the Northern Hemisphere. That's what they do as well. So it was good to see that out of Donaldson, and good to see him, again making Eddie Jones' life difficult with having so many talented players to pick from. Yeah,
totally. And talking about one more in the last game of the round, it was the Brumbies getting over the Highlanders in a tight affair. It's like one of those games the Brumbies just have to keep ticking off. The Highlanders will stay in a fight. The Highlanders, we know that they're a very similar team to the Reds currently, in the current situation as well. I feel like there's a lot of similarities between those two teams. Young, up and coming, not quite hitting the strides that they would want to hit, but what many expected them to hit this year. And they will hang around in games, and if you don't put them away, you'll end up like the Chiefs. So the Brumbies did the job. I am getting slightly more nervous, I think, with the Brumbies defence. The Brumbies, for me, are well known with being very structured and winning games with defence, but to concede the amount of points, I know they had another high-scoring game against Moana Pasifika recently as well, where it was like point, score, try, going back and forth. So they can attack. There's no doubt they've got some attack. It's just going to be interesting where it comes, and I'm excited for that Chiefs-Brumbies game, I think, next week. Not this week, but the week after. The URC as well, we had the semi-finals. Now, there's going to be a little bit of, I don't want to say controversy because it's not that much very controversial, but the Leinster team who hosted Munster, obviously two Irish teams playing each other. Now, however, saying that, Leinster is made up of a lot more Irish starting players for the actual Irish team. Now, I know a lot of them weren't playing in this game because they've got a European Champions Cup game coming up. So it wasn't like, I know Gary Ringrose wasn't playing. I think Josh van der Fly came off the bench. So it wasn't like this was their all-time first team. It wasn't a B team either. Like, they were still had players there that were capable of winning the game. But seeing that team lose and knowing the Irish talent they have on it made me feel a little good, because the Irish have become too good and I have to hate the Irish now. Although they were beaten by an Irish team, I get it. It was more now that the Springboks won their semi-final against Connacht, and so now I didn't think I'd ever be like a South Africa Super Rugby supporter, but I am now, because a South African team in the URC, I would prefer to see them win to show everyone how great the Southern Hemisphere rugby is versus the Northern Hemisphere. So I'll be sitting there supporting the Stormers, which I don't think I would have ever said previously, to get a win over Munster in that final.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, can't argue with your logic there.
Excellent. And I always feel like, and let me know if you think I'm wrong, but the two hated teams, especially South African teams, I always hated seeing were the Sharks and the Bulls.
Yeah,
I didn't mind the Stormers. Like, you had the Victor Matfield Bulls, the Smith Sharks, and it just, both of those teams felt angry. Like, I always had anger towards them. The Stormers, I've always had like a little bit of a a slight appeal to it. I don't know why, but it is what it is, I guess. I think that it was that Bulls versus Sharks final that probably, whenever there's a final between two South African teams, it was
It's you just lose all interest, really.
yeah. Mate, I'm going to let you take over this next round. Purely, we are talking about Cheika, obviously former Wallabies coach, current Los Pumas coach in Argentina, rumoured to be rumoured that he's put his name in the hat for your mighty St. George Illawarra Dragons coaching role.
Well, from what I've read, Argentina Rugby reached out to the Dragons to see if Cheika would be interested in taking the Dragons job. Or to see if the Dragons would be interested in Cheika taking the Dragons job. The Dragons have reportedly knocked that back and said that they're not really interested. It sounds very much like Jason Riles is going to be the next coach for the Dragons, because former Dragons player, the Roosters have working on being able to release him early from his contract. All these things, it all really points as if the Dragons have had this sort of in their back pocket, and it almost sounds like they've had Riles on the side and said, "Hey mate, look, if we get rid of Griffin, you're the next person in there. It's probably going to take a miracle for him to hold on, but we need to let things play out for media, public relations stuff. Not that they've done a particularly good job with that anyway. And then, we'll bring you on board." Look,
so you think
I would have liked Cheika to be there for the Dragons, because I think he did a very good job with the Lebanese rugby league team at the World Cup this year. So it would have been great to see Czech at St. George. It would be combining even further my two loves of the Waratahs and the St. George Illawarra Dragons. However, it looks as if it's not to be unless there's some sort of right before the clock strikes midnight reversal kind of thing. But yeah, I guess it would be. It's another thing showing just how close the two codes are and why we should be embracing in brotherly love rather than a dick swinging competition.
Fair enough. I want to touch quickly again on Moana Pasifika. I know I touch on this pretty much every podcast now, but to me, we've seen it. I've made my statement. It's failing. Again, we can give it more time and it may come right. I don't see that fan base coming right. I like the idea of them being based permanently out of Samoa or Tonga or both. I know there was a lot of comments on the last TikTok that I put out with this to say, there should be teams based out of Samoa and Tonga. I don't know if the competition can hold our end of the bargain up with that. I know Fiji's obviously a small population, but they're rugby mad. Would Samoa and Tonga garner that same interest? I'm unsure. But I think there's got to be at least a look to put Moana Pasifika in those places. I know they played a game there, but to be based out of there, it makes just so much more sense. I like the idea of two teams, Samoa and Tonga, and building from the player base that they have. Like, you're looking at Moana Pacific team, and I've said this, the identity's just gone. Like, who are they? These players play the ITM Cup. Some of them represent New Zealand's XVs. Like, this isn't... it's a New Zealand Pacific team. Rather than the Pacific's team. And I understand why New Zealand Rugby went down this route, because they knew they could support this to start off with. I just see it, unfortunately, failing, which is, like I say, it's unfortunate because everyone wants it to succeed. It's just the base, the identity and everything is not there.
Yeah, I think Australia is lucky in that I guess the Fijian community here is so large and also holds itself so distinct. It does feel like the Moana Pasifika team is, I mean, you said it, like a lot of them represent New Zealand. It feels like very much the leavings from the other New Zealand Super Rugby teams, and even some cases Australian Super Rugby teams. So yeah, I agree with that. Like it can't be that huge of an expense to base them in Samoa and Tonga, even if no one showed up, right? Even if no one showed up, I can't imagine it'd be that huge of an expense to have them play their games in one of those places. I don't know.
My big thing is, if Super Rugby, or New Zealand Rugby, Australian Rugby, Super Rugby agreed on this and got this done, World Rugby would support it. Like,
Yeah.
We have to be looking at Fiji and Dura and being like, fuck, this is great for the game of Fiji. Like, you've got these Fijian superstars over in Europe.
And I'll say as well, not only the Fijian Dura, but the Fijiana Dura as well, who just won the Super Rugby women's competition. Like,
Exactly.
those are they're both successful teams, like relatively successful teams. Like the Fijian Dura are competitive in Super Rugby, right? And yeah, like there is the distinct identity of Fiji about it.
Yes. And yeah, I agree. And I think World Rugby, you could definitely say, hey, look, chuck some money, we'll build up a better stadium, we'll improve the facilities when we get over there. Like, this gives an opportunity for us to give back to, if we want rugby to be especially the main sport in those Pacific nations, this is the way we do it. And we say, look, we'll base stuff out of there. Like, it blows my mind. As much as, the Western Force debacle when we got rid of them, I think stopped all momentum for a game that, an area that's crying out for a team from that area to support. I just don't want to lose Tonga and Samoa because we're so busy focused on New Zealand rugby still.
And look, the Western Force, we're very lucky that that's been brought back, particularly because Rugby League's sniffing around there as well. We know how heavily Rugby League are already investing in the Pacific nations, right? We've seen it in this last Rugby League World Cup where how many players are flocking to the banners of Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, and things like that. Rugby Union needs to regain some power in those areas, and having the players exist and live in the community as well. It's so important for spreading awareness amongst the local fans of who they are and things like that. Like, I follow a lot of Waratahs players on socials and things like that, and just seeing them out and about at places that I've been to lunch or I've grabbed a coffee and things like that. It's just a huge thing that builds connection between the fans and the players, right? To know that you have some shared experiences. So to know that your team is going to be based out of, say, Tonga, for example, and the players are on socials or you see them at public events and things like that. That's going to build up that relationship that is so key to building a huge fan base. And yeah, look, even if you did say half of their home games on one of the islands, I think that would be an improvement than just one. And Fiji has shown up. They've shown that it can be successful, right? You just have to build it the right way. Totally. And I think this is probably just like one of the rare cases where Super Rugby Australia has handled something better than Super Rugby New Zealand has. It's not normally that way around, but it's just a case, and I think it's just a bit of it is luck, a bit of it is which of the teams that they've taken on, and but I think some of it is administration as well.
Totally, and I think it's New Zealand Rugby thinking that they can control that, and it's not like they can't control it, but that control is ruining the product that they're delivering. They're like micromanaging the Super Rugby Pacific team. Like, it's just not going to work. So last time I'll try and keep my mouth shut unless we get some more developments out of Moana Pasifika. I just feel like we have to keep discussing it because it's just clear to this day that it's just not working. And I've seen people say they need a coaching change of Aaron Major there. They're getting pumped most weeks other than the Blues game. But I don't think a coach changes that much in this situation. It's not going to make a massive change. Even they start winning, it'll help. It will definitely help. But I don't see enough people already supporting it and everything that it, just to me, something's wrong. But I digress. I'll move on to my rule change idea for this week. Now, this is an interesting one. I want to see if you get around it. Last week, I put out the rule change that was no hands in the ruck. This time, what I'm trying to do is strip back the law to make the rule easier. So, what I am thinking for this week is we have this line in the 22 that for some reason we've decided if you have the ball inside that line, you can kick the ball out on the full. Why the fuck do we do that? So what I'm saying now is no ball can go out on the full unless you're kicking from like a penalty, obviously. Other than that, the ball cannot be kicked out on the full or it's a line out from where you kick it. So what I'm trying to achieve here is ball and play, because we're not kicking the ball out for a line out, ball and play and across the whole field. So again, even when you're in your own 22, when you're in your goal line, you can't kick it out. It's going to allow counter-attacking opportunities, and it's going to speed the game up. There's going to be more counter-attacks, attacking rugby, speed-up game, and a better product. And all you have to now tell anyone is, no, you can't kick the ball out on the full. That's the rule. Like, now at the moment, I'm trying to go, you can't kick the ball out of the full if you're 1 foot step in front of the 22. But if you're behind the 22, yes, you can. Thoughts, comments, concerns from the big man Husey as a prop.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm just thinking of as a forward. Like, I feel like obviously this probably concerns backs a bit more because they're the ones that are doing the kicking. Except when the game's on the line and you need to win, then you call in the playmaker. Yeah, I guess it definitely would have a great impact on how much everyone's running. You know, like running to and from plays and kicks and things like that. Like, you know, prop bouncing between different lines. At least when it goes out and it goes to a line out, you're like, thank fucking Christ, I can, you know, don't have to sprint over there. I can jog, never walk. All right, you never walk. Yeah, so you know, at least you got a little bit of a break there. You could catch a bit of your breath. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones where it's just like, this is just so different to what it is currently that it's hard to even imagine.
Hard to get your head around it. Totally.
It's hard to get your head around what impact it would have, you know?
Totally.
It's one of those ones where it's just like, I don't know what this is going to do. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. I feel like it's something you need to see live at like a schoolboy or like a lower grade level, just to see like, okay, we're going to trial this. Let's see what happens, right? Or, you know, you do it for some preseason games or something.
And when I first thought of this, I did, in my head, I was like, is this even a good idea? Like, is this a good idea? Like, is this going to help the game of rugby? Like, I sat there and I go, I couldn't imagine anything worse of being, you know, scrum 5 meters out your own goal line and not being able to kick the ball out on the full. But then I thought, no, you have to now play it tactically. Like, it's just, that's the way the rules will work. I agree, it has to be checked out. But I know our current chair of the World Rugby has said in our 200th year that innovation started this game. You know, 200 years ago, William Webb Ellis picked up a ball and decided rugby was to be played. So we're going to be talking about innovation really again after this. But this is, to me, is an opportunity to cut out some of those rules, not take a great effect of the game, and lose some of that integrity of the game. I still can't believe that we used to be able to pass back into the 22 to kick it out on the full. That still boggles my mind that there used to be a rule. But to get rid of all of that and go, hey, now we're playing attacking footy, get on board. Again, it has to be tested out in my belief, and I'd love to see it in action. I would just be very interested in what would happen. I think you're just going to see more ball and play. Like, I really do.
Was it the 200? Was it 250 years or 200 years?
200 years.
200 years. Yeah. I was just checking making sure I have my rugby history.
The history down, bud. The history was here.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was just making sure it was 200 years, because I thought you said 250. I was like,
sorry,
I just wanted to check.
200 years.
Yeah.
Talking about innovation and the under 20s, and again, a great testing ground, the under 20 World Cup. They're using a smart ball with the help of Gilbert. So this isn't a ball that will start talking back to you and you're saying, please find touch when I kick you out.
Yeah, I'll fucking go out. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
It is going to tell the referees and give real-time information if a ball has been thrown forward, if it has made where it has made touch in the location it's made touch, if it's been touched in flight by another player or charged down, stuff like that. If the ball is over the try line and then line out throws if it's straight. So a lot less for referees to worry about, like having to make the decision. And it's very similar to what you've got in football now, where if a football crosses the goal line for soccer, football, it'll pop up on the refs watch to say, yes, it's a goal. So I think they're looking to do something very similar to that. I love the idea of it. Anything to make the refs, take some of the stuff off the refs and the 100%. Decisions there. So I just thought, let's touch base on that, see how this goes.
The less the referee can be involved, the better. Now, that's not saying referee should... I don't see a way that referee can ever be fully removed, because there's always going to be something that requires a human decision, right? But the less stuff that they have to adjudicate on, the better.
So
I mean that's why we have the booth for reviewing tries and things like that, right? That's taking some of that out of his hands. So you can't say that that's not a thing that couldn't work.
Yeah, and I agree. It's great tested under 20s, and if it works, and I think we'll just start seeing more and more of this, where it's going to be helping refs rather than hurting them. The decision gets taken off them. Bang, yep, it was a forward pass. I'll be interested to see how well it can work, and is it going to be times where it's incorrect and they've got to make a decision, and how it all works. But we will keep everyone updated on that. But a great innovation, I think, for World Rugby. The Rugby Championship, I just wanted to touch base on quickly because I saw an article and they said it should change to 6 teams with the addition of Japan and Fiji. And I sat there, and I know we've discussed this before, and I've come right around to this and said, yeah, fuck yeah, it should. What the Fiji and Dura are doing, what Japan and New Zealand have just come to an agreement to be playing a lot more games. Commercially, Japan, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So get them involved into this and make it our own 6 nations. And again, I think you have an opportunity to put that in the calendar at the same time as the 6 nations in the northern hemisphere. So now you have 2 6 nations, one in the northern, one in the southern, where you're watching fantastic footy, is my opinion.
And you know what? That also opens up the opportunity for, if you put that at the same time as the 6 nations at the start of the year, you then have an opportunity for a Northern 6 Nations versus Southern 6 Nations champion game, which you can add another cup to that. You'll get huge cups. But you start some more history and legacy and traditions. Like, can you imagine, like, if Ireland, because they won the 6 Nations this year, first played like Australia, All Blacks, South Africa, whoever wins the rugby championship. Imagine if they faced off in a game to determine, the
best
the Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere, call some cup, like the Captain Cook Cup. I mean, that's probably not politically acceptable to say to call it, but
yeah. So, and again, I'm going to paint a picture. I love the idea. You've given it so much. Imagine this. So the 6 nations happen at the same time. Ireland go on to win the Northern Hemisphere, say South Africa does the incredible and somehow wins the Southern Hemisphere. They play that game 2 weeks later. What's kicking off? The URC. You can't tell me that's not great for rugby, that you've got all the South African versus Ireland have just won their comps, and now they're about to be in a club competition together. Just to me, it made a lot more sense. I was like, the Dura have shown it will help Fiji in rugby the more they're involved, and they deserve to be involved with the crowds they've delivered. Imagine a Fijian international game at home. You see Japan coming in. There's definitely good chances for them to win those games. Yeah. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Hughesy, the stats man, what have you got for us today?
Yeah, so I saw something the other day on the TV, and I sent it to you on Facebook so that I wouldn't lose these numbers here. So this was actually on Monday. So that's Monday, the 15th of May, right? So they have people listening in posterity. There was a news story about the Women's FA Cup final at Wembley Stadium in the UK, right? I believe it was the Women's FA Cup final. It was a women's final football match, FA Cup final, Chelsea versus Man United, right? Now, I want to stress again, this was a women's match. The crowd at the game was 77,000. 77,000. That's more than any Super Rugby men's game is getting. Right, that's more than what a lot of men's football games. Or in fact, I think it is more than whatever men's football games get here. It would be one of the biggest crowds in Australia, right? To get 77,000. Totally. Right now, even compared to a lot of the men's games over there, like 77,000 is a huge number in a crowd. That is a huge, huge crowd number, right? That I think. Accor Stadium has a capacity of 85,000 or something.
Yeah, something like that, 88 or something like that.
Yeah, something. Yeah, so imagine essentially full 80,500. But you can, I think that's the sitting capacity. I think you could add extra stands on or something, right? And then what about Allianz Stadium? Allianz Stadium, 45,000, 45,500, a lot smaller, right? So it's a packed out Allianz plus another half on top of that, right? That's insane. That is immense numbers. So I'm just going to take this opportunity now, and I'm going to look down the camera here. To all of you that say the women's game will never be as big as the men's game, you know what I say to that? I say two things. One, it very well could be. It's already getting there. And two, who the fuck cares if it's never going to be as big as the men's game, as long as it's big and brings in money, which this is. It's 77,000, right? So it's worth investing in it now and spending more now to get it to that level faster. Like, I hear all the arguments of like, oh, well, the men's game played for so long on lower money and they built themselves up. Yeah, you know how long that fucking took? Hundreds of years. Like we just said, rugby had its 200th anniversary, right? It took 200 years. You want the women's game to take 200 years to get up to that level? That's stupid. And that's even if you make, that's even based on the ridiculous assumption that the women haven't been playing before this time already. Of course they have been. There's been women's tournaments for years. They've never had the same level of support though. So it's about accelerating that process and getting the money back quicker. Like we've seen that sports will generate revenue, right? So you could see that the investment model works. If you look at it from a purely financial side, you see that the product works, right? So you know you have a formula, you've got the recipe, right? If you look at it for food aspect now, you've got the recipe, you know this dish works, right? You know that customers want to eat this dish, right? So now there's another, you can make another one of this dish with a slight change in the ingredients, but overall it's the same dish. It's essentially let's say it's like the vegan option or the gluten-free option of the same dish or something like that. Or it's like the lower carb base or something like that. Or it's, any kind of variation. Or instead of like a raspberry pie, it's a blueberry pie or something like that. It's essentially the same dish. And you think, okay, I could make this, I might need to I need to invest some money in getting the ingredients for this dish, right? I've moved fully into the food metaphor now. I'm gonna have to spend some money to buy the ingredients for this dish, right? So it is going to cost me a little bit at first because people aren't going to know about this dish. It doesn't have the same popularity as my old dish right away. But I know, given what I've seen happen for my other dish, that if I spend some money now, I will make that up in the future in spades because of how much revenue I'm making from my other dish. So why would you not want that? Why would you not support that? Right? I really don't understand it. And it's the same reason that, and as well, there's people aren't even taking into account cost of living expenses and things like that. Like, it's like a self-defeating prophecy as well. They say, well, the women's game will never be as good as the men's game. Well, how are they even supposed to attempt to do that when they're paid a fraction? They can't even do it full time in a lot of cases, right? How can they ever hope to approach that skill level when men can dedicate their full-time job to being a rugby player or being a sports player, and women can't do that? So for me, there is no angle that you can look at it where it doesn't make sense to invest in women's sport, because it's clearly a growth market, right? The Rugby Australia AGM it had the highest growth percentage of any market in rugby in Australia, right? In all sports, it's increasing basically worldwide, especially football, soccer. Yeah. Rugby league as well is getting bigger with the women's game as well. And that's a very entertaining product. The rugby women's NRLW, from our previous rugby league podcast, people know how much I was a fan of that game. So for me, I have not yet seen a cognizant argument about why you shouldn't invest in women's sport. I'm saying, I guess you can't exactly buy stocks in it, but it's like if you could, and if I was some kind of investment advisor, I would say buy stocks in women's sport because it is clearly a growth market. Get on the bandwagon now, start supporting it because it's only good for the sport. There's nothing negative about supporting the women's game unless you're a misogynistic pig.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with what you've just said. And especially, we've seen it recently, in recent times, the international women's rugby game is so strong at the moment. We saw the Women's Rugby World Cup in New Zealand, which had 50,000. Then over in France versus England, you had them break the record for the biggest crowd, which was like 54,000. The domestic Super Rugby women's competition obviously needs some work, and I imagine they'll be working pretty hard to get that up to where it can be. But we always know with rugby, and rugby union specifically, the big name of the game is international rugby. So I think, especially international women rugby, I love the idea of this women's XV, the WXV, that's coming out, that's going to be this big women's competition. More women's international rugby, the better for the game.
One thing I want to drop in here at the end, I didn't put it on the run sheet, but I've just remembered it now. It is that the Rugby League World Cup, France has pulled out as the host of the 2025 Rugby League World Cup. So there's a chance that Australia could host the 2025 World Cup. But there's also a chance New Zealand could host it. Qatar's throwing their name in the ring. But I just wanted to throw to you about what do you think, if any, impact it would have if Australia hosted the Rugby League World Cup 2 years before it hosted the Rugby World Cup? Do you think it takes away from the shine at all?
Nah, it doesn't. The Rugby League World Cup is. I don't think it does. I think that what you get from international travellers and tourists coming in for a Rugby World Cup is such a different level to what you get for a Rugby League World Cup. It'll be big for you Australians hosting it. I don't think there's a more passionate group of fans than whenever you get an Australian passionate group of fans. So like the AFL, it's nutty. When you see rugby league, talk about rugby league, they're nutty. So it would take a little impact on it, I think, just with the home market. But I just think the Rugby Union World Cup is just such a bigger competition. Like the comparison there is just not even close. Same with, I don't think New Zealand could solely host the Rugby League World Cup.
Yeah. I think it's actually would be a positive for the Rugby Union World Cup if the Rugby League World Cup came to Australia, because that is one thing Rugby League could put over their heads is like, oh, well, the next World Cup is going to be in France. So don't you want to travel to France if you picked as part of the Australia squad? Now it's a bit like, well, shit, it's just going to be here in Australia. It's going to be the same stadiums you always play in. You may as well go to Union where they pay me more.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting, there's a lot going on in both sports. I think, the international game of rugby union is just the gold standard. So,
and we haven't even talked about the possibility of Su'ali'i being able to play for the Waratahs in Australia this year. Like there's rumblings about that. Oh, it's getting a bit late for that, but yeah.
A lot happening in the rugby union world. We will make sure we keep you up to date every week on That Rugby Podcast. Make sure if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes, you just keep up with us. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe and like button. Support us. We'll be here year-round, coming up to a Rugby World Cup year. Rugby Championship dates have been announced. The lovely MCG hosting the All Blacks versus Wallabies, and then the counter game to that is in Dunedin, where the All Blacks don't have the greatest record of all time. So Bledisloe right there for the taking for you, young man.
Fingers crossed. I mean, it was 25,000 tickets sold on the first day at the MCG.
So it's going to be a sellout. I don't doubt it. I've looked into actually flying down there for it. I think it's just I think it's going to be an epic game. If it even gets close to a sellout, I'll probably be on my way down. Excellent.
Fun times.
There we go. We'll keep you up to date. 3 more weeks of Super Rugby, and then we're into finals time. A lot more to make of that. For now, thank you for joining us on That Rugby Podcast. We will see you next time. I've been Luke. That's been Husey. Goodbye.
Peace.